Hi guys, it's Brainy in Sour. So, how are you today? One of my friend's clients, she just getting ready to leave in Sour, and we just met up, and I just asked her what's the most confusing thing about living in Sour. And she thought for a second and said that, okay, so what's the difference between a clinic and a hospital? Doo-doo. Honestly, I didn't know how to answer at the time. I've lived in Seoul my whole life without ever thinking about the difference. It was just so normal to me. I guess my rule was pretty simple. If I felt really sick, I'd go to a hospital. And if not, I'd just visit a local clinic depending on what kind of doctor I need. It never occurred to me that this could be confusing for someone moving here. So I decided to find out the real difference between a clinic and a hospital. When you should go to each one and how to choose the right place for your situation. Before we get into the official difference, let me just tell you how I personally choose where to go. If it's a routine like a prescription refill, I just pop into a local clinic. But if I'm feeling sick or need a diagnosis like internal medicine or dermatology or women's health, I look for a nearby board certified specialist. And before I go or I book an appointment, I skim reviews on Neighbor, and sometimes I see how long the clinic has been operating. So for something serious, especially if surgery is involved, then I'd go with a major university hospital with a strong medical team. So I think my personal rule is a very simple. Routine refills, local clinic. New health concerns, find the right specialist. For serious or complex cases, go to a major university hospital. So here's the official difference. In Korea, it's actually based on the number of beds. If a place has fewer than 30 beds, it's a clinic. 30 or more, that's a hospital. Once it hits around 100 beds with certain departments, it becomes a general hospital, like a big university hospital. So here's another big thing. It's not just the size of the place, but also who's treating you. In Korea, every doctor starts as a licensed physician after med school. To become a board certified specialist, they train for several more years and pass a specialist exam. A quick way to tell is the clinic name. If it includes a specialty like internal medicine clinic or dermatology clinic, usually that means the doctor is a board certified specialist in that field. If the name is something general like ABC Clinic without specialty in the name, it may be run by a general physician. So, when you are choosing where to go, think about two things: the size of the facility and whether your doctor is a specialist. Remember, it's just a tip, not a rule. One thing I've really come to appreciate about Korea is how accessible healthcare is. If I wake up feeling sick, I can usually see a doctor the same day. There are specialist clinics almost everywhere, and pharmacies are usually just a few steps away. I don't think I truly appreciate that until I studied in England. One day, I came down with the mumps. It was the first time I'd ever had it, and I was already in my 20s. I remember sitting in an NHS waiting room for what felt like forever. I think it was around 3 hours. My face was swollen. I could barely swallow, and I honestly just wanted someone to help. When I finally saw the doctor, I was simply told, go home, get some rest. and let your body recover. That was it. No injection, no prescription, just rest. I walked back home feeling completely helpless. I was living alone, 2,000 miles away from my family, and I remember making beef porridge because it reminds me of my mom's cooking. It was the closest thing to home I had at the moment. For almost 2 weeks, I barely went anywhere. I just stayed in my room, hoping I'd feel a little better each day. Looking back, that horrible experience made me appreciate Korea's healthcare system so much more. Here, if I start feeling unwell, I can usually find a nearby specialist, see a doctor quickly, and pick up my medicine from the pharmacy and start the treatments the very same day. Of course, serious illness is different, and that's when major hospitals are important. But for everyday healthcare, I think Korea makes it incredibly easy to get the help you need. Another thing I find really interesting about Korea's healthcare system is that it's mostly run by private clinics and hospitals. Around 90% of healthcare providers are privately operated, and I think that's one of the reasons it's usually so easy to see a doctor quickly. But the convenience comes with a trade-off. When people need a major surgery or treatment for a serious illness, many of them want to go to the same large universities, hospitals, known for their specialized doctors. So even though Korea has plenty of hospitals, many patients still try to get into just a few major ones. I actually had a surgery at Seoul National University Hospital earlier this year, and the care was excellent, but the waiting process was so exhausting. So still, I think Korea's healthcare system is a bit of a paradox. For everyday healthcare, it's incredibly fast and convenient, but for major surgery or complex treatment, getting into the hospital you want can mean long wait. So next time you're not feeling well, don't hesitate to visit a specialist clinic. Just start local for convenience. And if it seems serious, the clinic can recommend you go to a big hospital. If you have more questions about everyday life in Korea, that's exactly what this channel is for. So I will see you in the next video. Bye!